So, picture this. In the middle of this peaceful little village called Pur, there's this one building that just looms over everything. An old, crumbling mansion known as the Purani Haveli. Now, the villagers, they whisper about it, but they never, ever go near it. They say something isn't right inside those walls. For as long as anyone can remember, two stories have been wrapped around this place. One is about a terrifying ghost, and the other, a rumor of a huge hidden treasure. But the truth? Oh, the truth is something else entirely. It's a secret that's way darker than any ghost story, and more precious and terrible than any amount of gold. So the real question is, what is actually going on in there? And the warnings from the villagers? They were always the same. Stay away, don't get too close. People who dared would hear things. Or worse, they'd see her. This wild-haired old woman just drifting through the dark rooms, her lips moving but no sound coming out. To them, she wasn't just a person. She was the mansion's ghost, the keeper of all its sorrow.
Okay, so this is where our two worlds are about to collide. On one side, you have the villagers' deep-seated generational fear, and on the other, pure modern-day greed. Four newcomers show up: Rajiv, his wife Ria, and his brothers Raman and Prem. They don't see a haunted house. They see a giant payday. They think the mansion is their ancestral property, and they're here to claim it and sell it for a fortune. The villagers' terror? To them, it's just some silly local folklore.
So yeah, they totally blow past all the warnings from the locals and just barge right into the mansion, ready to stake their claim. The air inside is just thick with dust and rot, and there, huddled into corner, is the old woman. But she's not some terrifying phantom. No, she's about to become the key to a prize they never even imagined. So they go to confront her, probably expecting a fight, right? A squatter they need to kick out. But instead, she just looks up with these empty eyes and says this. And in that one moment, everything, and I mean everything, changes. The plan to sell the mansion just vanishes. A hidden treasure? That's way more than just a real estate deal. That's the stuff of legends, and you can just feel the greed take over. And just like that, it is absolute chaos. The four of them start tearing the mansion apart. And the old woman is right there with them, shuffling around, tapping on walls like this living, breathing treasure map who's lost her memory. Well, word about the treasure spreads through Pur like wildfire. And suddenly, the promise of getting the cut is enough to make everyone forget they were ever scared. Soon, you've got over 100 villagers swarming the property, digging, searching, completely consumed by gold fever. So hours go by and nothing. The excitement starts turning into frustration. But then, just when they're about to give up, one of the villagers notices a pile of rubble in a corner of the mansion where the roof had collapsed. And he realizes, hey, no one could have searched under that for decades. And this is where things get really intense. Everybody starts working together, hauling away these heavy stones and broken beams. And underneath it all, there it is, a single stone slab on the floor that just doesn't match the others. With one last big effort, they manage to pry it loose. And it reveals a set of stone steps, spiraling down into pure darkness. So they grab their flashlights and head down into this cold, musty, cobweb-filled cellar. And in the beam of a light, they see it. A big, old iron chest. The moment she sees that chest, the old woman just erupts. She lets out this shriek of pure joy, clapping her hands, dancing around it. For everyone watching, her excitement is all the proof they need. This is it. The air is electric. They're seconds away from being unbelievably rich. Rajiv and his brothers pushed everyone aside and bust open the old lock. But when they throw open the lid, there's no gold, no jewels, nothing. Just the tiny, perfectly preserved skeleton of a baby lying on some old, faded cloth. The noise in the cellar just stops. It's replaced by this heavy, stunned, horrified silence. The treasure hunt is over. As everyone's just standing there in shock, the old woman falls to her knees. But she isn't scared. She reaches into the chest and gently touches the bones. And seeing that skeleton seems to unlock something deep inside her. The fog in her mind starts to lift for what must be the first time in years. She starts to cry. And then she starts to talk. Her name, she tells them, is Gauri. And this was her treasure. And then the whole horrible story just comes pouring out. Years ago, Gori was a young wife living in this very mansion. She gave birth, but it was a girl, and her husband and father-in-law were furious. All they cared about was having a son, a male heir. So her husband did something monstrous. In this very cellar, he performed a dark ritual, sacrificing his own infant daughter to ensure he'd have a son next time. Well, when Gori found out what they'd done, her mind didn't just break, it completely shattered. In a fit of grief and pure rage, she grabbed a knife and killed all of them, her husband, her father-in-law, and the servants who helped. Her very last sane act was to put her baby's body in this chest, to protect her only treasure, before the trauma just wiped her memory clean, leaving her to haunt her own home for decades. So, when you boil it all down, the real monster in this story wasn't a ghost, was it? It was this twisted cultural belief, this obsession with having a male heir, this awful idea that daughters are worth less than sons. That is what drove a man to do the unthinkable. Gari's private hell was born from a very real and very cruel social pressure. Can you even imagine the rage, the pain? This is what she screamed at them as she took her revenge. In that moment, she wasn't just a grieving mother. She was justice. She was delivering a curse on the men who valued their family name more than their own child's life. A curse born from absolute love and absolute pain. After hearing all this, the villagers were just floored. Their fear is gone, replaced by this incredible pity and respect for the woman they'd called a ghost. But the four newcomers? They're just mad there's no money. So let's see how this all wraps up. In Rajiv's reaction, he just looks at it in disgust, spits out these words, and then he kicks the chest. He kicks the makeshift coffin of Gori's baby girl. It is such a disgusting, callous act that it becomes the final trigger for everything that happens next. That's the final straw. The police are called, but here's the twist. They're not for Gauri. When they start investigating Rajiv and his brothers, they find out their claim to the mansion was based on forged documents. The whole thing was a scam from the start. All four of them are arrested for fraud. Meanwhile, the villagers, who now understand the mansion's real story, they come together and give the infant a proper, respectful funeral. And Gauri, her story finally told, is gently taken to a psychiatric hospital to get the care she has needed for so long. So in the end, it's this really strange, almost poetic justice for everyone involved. The scammers are punished, Gauri finally finds care, her daughter is given peace, and the Haveli itself, the site of all this suffering, is about to get a brand new start. And the Haveli itself, the source of all this fear and pain? The villagers do something incredible. They decide to turn the Purani Haveli into a school for girls. They put a plaque on the gate that reads, Gori Kanya Vidyalaya, the Gori Girls' School. The very building where a daughter was sacrificed because she wasn't a son is now a place dedicated to empowering girls. The mansion, haunted by a mother's tragic memory, finally finds its true purpose, which really makes you think. Maybe the greatest treasures aren't gold or jewels, but the stories that are just waiting for someone to finally listen.